Alright, so case closed. I think we can all equally say that that was a pretty good um, crime scene investigation. And now I think we need to reflect on our what we have learned today. Um, Personally, the analysis part of this whole crime scene, this whole project, uh, really was very riveting in a sense where I was able to explore something I really loved. I was able to look closer to a show that I've always loved from, I don't know, probably like whenever it came out. I was around the time, like the first um, episode I saw, I think it was still pretty new. Um, but I knew about them. What I knew about the episodes in general was I had known, I had seen them previous to this project, but I had never singled out those episodes until today because I realized how much it embodies um, CSI as a TV show, as well as our this idea of like crime scenes, and it's literally a show based on um, crime scenes and like how they're solved. And so looking more in depth into that, I was able to really understand like the hard work that goes into it. And although like mine is just a mere project compared to like a production that they are able to put on about such things, um, I feel like I did a pretty good job, and it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Um, and then my genre, my opinion didn't exactly change, but my understanding did, just because I was never really one to look more in depth when it came to the research of a specific TV show. But now that I have, like, I find it really interesting, and who knows, maybe I'll change my major to forensic science. um, in terms of writing, the most writing they do in the show is like writing reports, but as a viewer, the only thing you really ever get to see is like suspect description. Um, so the writing in the show is really just like reports and such, whereas like the blog I was able to access, which is on the um, works cited for each. There's a summary of each um, episode, and like from there I was able to really like understand like how it is that like summaries are written about these things. Like it doesn't go too into depth, or like it doesn't go into the gory details, rather it focuses more on like the overall plot. The message in terms of like what they're trying to communicate and like why or whom they're trying to communicate it to, I honestly like think that it's more of just an entertainment type of thing. Like it, like the pure purpose of that would be just to create a television show that someone would enjoy, but at the same time it can be thought of as, say, like something to help other criminals like identify what is the best thing, like in order to commit the perfect crime. Like what do they have to get away with? And then in terms of product and or production, sorry, and remediation, I personally chose a place in which the victim, me, but the victim was comfortable in, which is my own college dorm. And then I have a silver trunk that I use to keep other like necessities in. So I thought it would be the perfect place to place the body, because it's in an environment that I personally feel comfortable with. And then I decided to do like a slit on the neck to just like show a little bit of blood and gore, but like not too much. And then like, because I didn't want to be too gory, and like obviously in terms of like the blood, there would be like, hypothetically, if that were to happen to me, like there would be a lot more blood than there was. But because this is a project, I feel as though I was able to like stretch that so it wasn't nearly as messy, and you could see like a clean cut. to make it more like realistic looking, even though there wasn't nearly as much blood as there should have been. And then I decided on duct tape and bruises because to show that the victim had been beaten previous, and then duct tape to show that there was restraint, and a female victim, instead of like using a male victim, like are usually victims of like said abuse and like usually rapings and such. So with all that like coming to mind, it makes more sense to like put all of those different variables together to like create the perfect crime or perfect crime scene. The only real thing that you would have to look out for DNA and like fingerprints would be like on the trunk itself, the fingerprints on the stickiness of the duct tape, and then as well as like under the victim's fingernails to see if they got a piece of their attacker. And then for my research steps, I again watched those episodes, and then I decided to like read like summaries based on like what www.imdb, I believe, .com, how they portrayed the episode in question. My previous knowledge, I wouldn't say has changed, but I also wouldn't say so much. So I guess it's changed, just because like I feel like I have a more in-depth understanding of the actual show and how much work goes into it. The different conventions that I listed would be so there was evidence of blood near the crime scene, which I had on my neck because my neck had been slit. There was a lifeless body found at the scene. I tried to look as dead as possible. The body was found in a place people would usually perceive as comfortable, so that was like in my dorm room. And then the murderer or committer of said crime is the least likely subject. In this instance, my attacker would have been my roommate, and that being said, obviously like we weren't able to like get the attacker in the photo just because then it wouldn't be the perfect crime scene because our attacker would be right there. But it would be the most unlikely subject because she's probably like one of my best friends. And then for fingerprints and DNA is the primary case against said criminal. So in order to commit a crime, you must have no evidence of you ever being there. Again, like I'll reiterate, like the only evidence of like the attacker being there would be under the fingernails, like on the duct tape itself and on the trunk. And then it's mostly like for the difference between it, like I would say like the lifeless body was the subject, whereas the location was like the place where they feel most comfortable. The suspect is another convention, and like again, although these are all playing into one crime, they all differ in importance, and I wouldn't say like one is necessarily like highly ranked above the other, but like the blood is like you can solve a crime without blood, there can be a crime scene without blood, but that being said, there can't really be a crime scene in terms of murder without a body or a body part. So like they may differ in, how would you say, I guess like a necessary point of view, but in all honesty, I think that they all contribute like to the perfect crime in equal amounts, because like if you were to take like say seeing a lifeless body and then like it being completely obvious like who the murderer is, or finding DNA, like it's not necessarily perfect if you get caught. And then for strengths and weaknesses, I would probably say my weakest point was like really understanding how to do the project. But I do appreciate the project itself because I was really able to learn more about my own favorite show. And then I honestly didn't know exactly how to like phrase. I feel like my strong point was probably recreating or like really like, diagnosing like what it is that that sets like each standard apart from one another and each convention apart from one another. So that being said, that was probably my strength, but like my weakness was really like understanding like how to go about it and analyze it. And then as for the project as a whole, I guess like the main struggle was just because my professor and I had previously talked about like how my project may differ, and so like I just wanted to make sure I did the project correct and still met her standards without completing everything in the rubric, because we had previously talked about like the differences that like my project and the project itself like could entail. And then as for image, style, and tools, I mean, obviously I don't have a professional camera or fake blood lying around or like special effects makeup like they do in the actual show, but I made do with like Photoshop and like a little bit of makeup, and I think like it was sufficient enough to like look relatively real, which is really like the only thing I was really hoping would happen. And then as for my takeaway, I don't know, I had a lot of fun with this project, and I felt really cool like creating my own crime scene, and I think that I can say is Deputy Page. I'm gonna pretend like I'm a detective. Alright, case closed.